We are just 2 weeks away from the showcase of the Immortals, WrestleMania. So on today's show, we are going to answer some of the biggest questions in the world of wrestling, as well as hear from you, our audience. We're taking your questions for the first time live on the show today. All of that and so much more coming up on this edition of the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. The bomb drops now.
For all of you friendly, nice, amazing people.
Oh, hi everyone. We love you so much.
You guys are the best.
This is TSF.
Was it real though?
109.
Oh my god.
And you're listening to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, baby.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, a show that is for the fans, by the fans. Thank you, TSF. My name is Chris Belcher, your phenomenal host. With me, as always, is Mr. Andy York, the Young Buck. 2 weeks away from WrestleMania. Do you know what that means, though, Andy? 2 weeks from WrestleMania also means that we're in March, and it is March Madness.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on, man.
Yeah, so if you see a screen glaring this way, it's because we may or may not have a game going. We're not sure.
There's games happening.
But yeah, man, I cannot believe that we are only 2 weeks away from WrestleMania. Like,
Right?
It has happened. I feel like we were just at Mania last year, and like, blink and it's been a year.
This year has gone by really quick.
It's gone by too quick.
Yep.
Way too quick. But man, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the closer we get to WrestleMania, the more questions we have and the more intrigue it is. So I'm looking forward to today's show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
You know, I put over Triple H last week and his building towards WrestleMania. I've got a little bit of beef with it this week. We'll get to that pipe bomb here in just a few minutes, though. But
Teaser.
Teaser. If you guys are just now checking us out, if you just now stumbling upon our show, thank you. Subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the Body Slammed On That YouTube channel. That is where our video version is available. Support Sports Wire, Tom and the crew over there. They play our shows very regularly, so make sure that you're supporting them. And again, subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Like this show, give us a 5-star review, and most importantly, follow us. Give us feedback at PBWP Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Andy, let's kick it off by going old school. And this past week, the day that we are releasing this show is March the 17th. Yesterday was March the 16th, 3/16. So, of course, old school, we are going to talk about the Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, man. So obviously, a day of recording yesterday was 3/16, Austin 3/16 day. And when you think of professional wrestling, one of the first things that pop up into your mind is Austin 3/16.
Yep.
He's one of the ones that transcend the business.
Yep.
He's one of the ones that even those who don't know wrestling or watch wrestling, more than likely they know who Stone Cold Steve Austin
they do.
is. So we could run down his list of his career. We could talk. There's a lot that we could talk about.
Sure.
But just, obviously he's one of the guys that everybody looks up to. Kind of talk about, because obviously you got the privilege of growing up and watching him.
Yeah.
My first Stone Cold match getting to watch live was WrestleMania this past year. Makes you feel old. But just kind of talk about what it was like growing up watching, this man perform week in and week out.
I was more on the WCW side of things, growing up. So I didn't get a lot of the Attitude Era live.
Right.
I will say that I was privileged. The only Stone Cold match that I got to see live before this one that we saw last year was during his run as tag team champion with Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
And they were Monday Night Raw. They had just won the titles the week before I went.
Yep.
And then the very next week, I was in attendance for Shawn and Austin versus the LOD. So that was a lot of fun. But that's the only time I ever got to see Austin wrestle.
Yeah.
But there's no denying this guy was not a great wrestler. Now, back in the early 90s, before he had his neck injury, oh my gosh, people think he was great in this era.
Yeah.
I challenge everybody to go watch Stunning Steve stuff in WCW.
Yeah.
That is some of my favorite stuff. His feud with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the stuff he did with Dustin Rhodes, tag team with Flying Brian. I mean, my goodness. dude could just go. And then he got to WWE, and then he skyrocketed to a whole nother level, not just in wrestling, but in pop culture, and literally changed the game. I don't think you can have a Mount Rushmore without this guy.
I completely agree. And I think the thing that makes him, he might be the most charismatic wrestler of all time.
Sure.
He's up there. I mean, you obviously got to talk about The Rock and Hogan and all these other guys,
Yep, you
but
do.
he is up there as one of the most charismatic guys, but he's also one of those guys that changed with the time.
Sure,
like he knew when the time was to change. Now, obviously, his heel turn at WrestleMania is very controversial.
Sure
a lot of people are not fans of the turn and what we got afterwards. I think it's not who Stone Cold was.
Yep.
Like it goes against who the character was, but it gave us a different side of Stone Cold.
It did.
And the stuff with him and like Kurt Angle
We got the comedy stuff for the first time.
was like the stuff with him and Angle was amazing. I saw a promo. I believe it was going into Survivor Series because I feel like this always happens when we go into Survivor Series.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. It may have been going into Invasion. Maybe not. I don't remember.
Invasion. So he turned at Invasion. Right?
He turned face at Invasion?
No, he turned.
Because he joined WCW and
WCW.
ECW for a while.
Right, that was at Invasion.
Okay, so there was a promo. I don't remember exactly where it was. It may have been going into Survivor Series. But it was Angle, Austin. It was the American BA Taker, Kane, and I don't remember who the other one is. And Vince is giving like a speech.
Yeah, that's before Invasion.
Okay.
Yep.
So he's giving a speech, and Austin is doing everything he can to break Undertaker, and he's like, he's that close. You see Taker keep putting his hand over his mouth because he's just making him break every 5 seconds. Stuff like that I really enjoy when you get a different side. So he changed with the times, and, you know, we talk about greatest of all time. Cena's up there.
Yep.
Hogan's up there. The Rock's up there. You got to put Austin up there as well.
Yeah, you do. I mean, if you didn't get that Austin heel turn, one of the greatest chants in all of professional wrestling would have never been born. We wouldn't have got the what chant.
It's the worst thing in the world then.
But it's the greatest
It's
thing.
not.
It is. It's so good.
It is when it's utilized right. When it's done
When it's
over the
Austin.
top.
When it's Austin.
Yes. Or when it's like Vince cutting a promo. Like it worked then too. But
Right.
boy, they're rough now. the what chants are rough now.
But like for what it was,
yeah.
like we wouldn't have got that had we not gotten the heel turn.
Yeah, and then you would have missed like the moment with him and The Rock singing in the ring together and cutting promos back and forth and all of that fun stuff. So, you know, I think it is what it is, but this man's career, one of the best careers of all time.
No doubt.
Don't think anybody is going to ever get the same level of reaction as the type of babyface that he was ever again.
That glass shattering is just
this day
a whole other level, man.
Like to this day, my wife, who is newer to wrestling than I even, like her first wrestling experience was when we started dating, which was in 2019, 2020. And even when Stone Cold's glass shatters, then like she watched WrestleMania at home while we were there, and she even said, like, I can't imagine what you're feeling because I have goosebumps right now when the glass shattered. So
Listen,
like it's a thing.
Could you imagine? Like we were in the building when the glass shattered. We knew it was coming.
Both times. We knew it was coming.
We knew it was coming both times.
Vince sold it the second time.
And it was insane. It was so cool. But could you imagine being in a building at the height of the Attitude Era and that glass shattering?
I think of man, I want to say it was before Invasion 2 when they were like the ring was filled with people beating up on maybe Taker.
Okay.
And I don't remember who they were beating up. And all of a sudden you just see a car pull up, Stone Cold gets out, starts beating people with lead pipes, and then the glass shatters and the place just loses their mind.
Yep.
So there's nothing like, you talk about the LOD pop, you got to talk about the Stone Cold pop as well.
For
man.
sure. I mean, when I think about the Attitude Era, the biggest Austin pop that I can think of off the top of my head is the night Mick Foley won the world title on Raw.
Yeah.
And when he came out that night, like, could you imagine being in the building that night?
Oh, man.
Like, that's insane.
You get Foley win the title. You get Stone Cold coming out. You get that amazing Vince reaction to when the glass shatters. Is great.
It's so good. So, celebrating 316 Day, the Stone Cold Steve Austin Day. I guess WWE had a gathering and promoted WWE 2K at his brewery and all kinds of stuff. Quick prediction: does he show up at Mania this year?
I think so,
in some form or fashion.
I'm going to put it out here now. Here's my prediction for the Stone Cold spot. Is going to be with LA Knight.
See, I thought it was going to be perfect that Miz was hosting.
Yeah.
Because I thought it would be perfect for Austin and Miz.
Yeah.
Miz will come out and do his host gig, and here comes Austin.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Rock.
Maybe
we get Rock, Miz, and we get Austin LA Knight.
Yeah, because I would love to see a prime Stone Cold versus LA Knight today.
Sure.
Like those promos back and forth would be.
Could you imagine if it was Rock LA Knight though?
Yeah, but like my thing is like we get a yeah chant versus a what chant. Like that's literally all we like. That's to go back and forth between those two. I could do a 30-minute promo with just them going back and forth, and I would love every second of it.
That's true.
You put New Day in there with the Who chant, and we got we're going in circles. But
oh my gosh,
honestly, I think either Miz or LA Knight is where
we get
Stone Cold shows up, or The Rock, or both.
I get it.
Could you imagine if both were in the ring and they both showed up?
Man.
I mean, I'm not saying it would. I could absolutely see that happening.
Oh, it happened at WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, it did.
So don't.
But them getting physical at the same time together.
Oh man. Yeah. And then I'm getting the goosebumps thinking about it. Okay, yep. Stone Cold Steve Austin, ladies and gentlemen. Just a great way to pay tribute to the old school. If you do like the old school, make sure you're checking out WrestleBuddy. I'm making a strategic effort to put a lot of old school stuff up there. Going to be some stuff coming up with WrestleMania here in the next couple of weeks that I'm going to put out. So make sure you keep an eye on that. I know Andy's got good stuff out there. Tyler's got good stuff. Alex, the whole crew over at WrestleBuddy, some great stuff. Especially if you enjoy just catching up on the biggest stories in wrestling and all that kind of stuff. It's tremendous site, tremendous resource. Make sure you check it out. We are proud to have them as part of our partnership. All right, man. Let's we tried this last week. It was fun. We're going to try it again this week.
Yep.
It is our Pipe Bomb of the Week. The show is called the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast for a reason. Something that we're just aggravated about or that we're excited about. In 25 seconds, whatever we can get out is our hot take for the week.
Yep.
You've already given a hot take, but I mean, you can give another one. I'll let you go first this week.
All right.
25 seconds on the clock. Here we go.
All right, so we're going to be talking about WrestleMania, the U.S. Championship match between Austin Theory and John Cena. I'm really looking forward to that match. What I think was going to happen from this is I truly think Theory is going to lose to Cena. Theory is going to go off TV for a little bit, and then he'll make his comeback, maybe Money in the Bank or something like that. But Cena hosts an open challenge the night after Mania, and it's answered by either Jay White or Nick Aldis.
Oh,
and they win the title.
I like it. So Cena only holds the title for one, maybe 2 nights, depending on when Mania is. I like that. I think if Cena does win, which I think is highly possible, we talked about this last week, then that's the route to go.
Yeah.
Is he's going to have to drop it very soon. That way he can go off TV and do whatever.
Plus, one of the most famous things with the U.S. title is Cena's open challenge with the U.S. title. So,
yep. Nick Aldis would be perfect. Jay White, I'm okay with. I just think the Nick Aldis connection could work better storyline wise, but
especially if Cody's champ and they both have a stare down at the end of the night. Oh, yes, please.
Bingo. Bingo. All right. Here we go. My Pie Bomb of the Week. I already said last week I praised Triple H for his build to WrestleMania, but now putting a Hall of Fame induction into a storyline, come on. Like, I expected this out of Vince McMahon, not out of Triple H. We are really going to turn a legendary Hall of Fame induction like Rey Mysterio into a storyline. Because there's no way they go to Mania and that's not part of the storyline.
I think
there's no way.
I think the match doesn't get set up until the Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Here's what I would do. This is just me. I would tease it on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of Ray's Hall of Fame speech, accept the challenge.
Yeah. I agree. I think the speech, Dominic doesn't do anything to Ray. I think if we go that route and he accepts it at the end, then as they're going off the air, the logo's up, Dominic goes out and attacks him. Because at some point, the Hall of Fame's got to get used for something.
The Hall of Fame is already tainted enough anyway.
Yeah, so why not keep going?
But that's stupid. Like, don't call it a Hall of Fame then, because it's not really a Hall of Fame. You know? Like,
well,
I don't know. Like, I have a hard time with that. I really do. Like, the Hall of Fame it's supposed to be something where you honor guys for their accomplishments and everything they've done. And we're already honoring people in a sport that is being predicted and carefully crafted. So it's already tainted because it's not a real Hall of Fame.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Why take away what little prestige it does have?
I get that, but also to me, that adds to it because like this is already predicted. We're already, they've done great stuff in their career, but it's not like it's all been predicted, blah, blah, whatever. That kind of adds to this of like, why not use it because it's never been done before. And I'm telling you, man, Dominic's already like the most hated man on the roster. That'd add to it at WrestleMania.
I know. I just hate it.
Especially at Mania if he comes out in a lowrider.
Oh, you know he is. You know he is.
Part of me kind of hopes he does and comes out to Eddie's music.
Oh, that's a little too far.
Or at least have Eddie's music hit and then transition into Dominic's music and then he comes out in the lowrider.
I do think he comes out in the lowrider.
I hope he does.
Definitely. Quick prediction on this. Do we somehow tie Ray's career into this?
Yeah. I think it becomes for the mask. Like if Ray loses, he loses his mask and he retires.
Okay. All right.
I don't see how it doesn't.
This is like one of the last matches that has not been truly announced.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby and Bray also too.
You don't know what's going on.
Right. We have no idea what's happening there. We'll get to that in a little bit. But this is one of the matches that hasn't been announced that we thought would be one of the first ones announced.
Yeah.
So we're still, in limbo here. We'll see what happens on SmackDown tonight.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. If you're digging what we're doing, make sure that you subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the BodySlam.net YouTube channel. Follow them on social media as well. Follow us at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are here each and every week for you. Current Product Show, our fantasy booking show, PBWF, is coming back WrestleMania week. So less than 2 weeks away on Tuesday, March the... I should have had the date in front of me.
29th?
28th, 29th?
Something like that.
28th.
Yeah.
Tuesday, the week of WrestleMania. That's when the PBWF is coming back. Season 2 draft is coming that day, so get ready for it. We're excited. A lot of good stuff in Season 2. A lot of changes coming. Just happened to, the Lethal Lottery just popped in my head. I can't wait for that.
I forgot about that.
So good. All right. Here we go. Let's move on. We're going to change the format of our show just a little bit here.
Yeah.
Andy and I have been talking about some ways to shake things up, do some different things. So what we're going to do is, I teased it in the open, we are going to answer the biggest questions in the world of wrestling. Okay, so full disclosure, I also put on social media this week that I wanted viewer questions. We're going to start doing viewer questions. And one of the viewer questions took away one of the biggest questions in the world of wrestling. So if you're wondering, or you're talking about the biggest questions in wrestling, you're not talking about Bray Wyatt, it's because it's coming, okay?
Yeah.
It was going to be one of the questions. But let's start with the biggest one. I teased it last week. A lot of people have been saying it. Eric Bischoff, most famously saying it. Is the Bloodline the greatest storyline in the history of wrestling?
Oh, man.
Isn't that such a... I mean, there are so many ways we could go with this.
There are, because it's preference. So, like,
it is,
there are
right.
stories. Like 90% of people loved the Kane and Undertaker story.
Oh, man.
During
I didn't
the
even
debut.
think about that. Golly.
But I'm sure there was a contingency of people that were like, man, this is dumb. Like, this doesn't make sense. So, like, there's always storylines that aren't for everybody. I think, like, when I think of greatest storylines of all time, I think of that Kane and Undertaker.
Yep.
I think of Ric Flair's retirement.
Yep.
Like, that whole story.
Mm-hmm.
This, like, I don't know if anything's ever been like this.
Even
to the level and to the length that it's been. I mean, we're talking 3 years now?
Almost 3 years. Eric Bischoff even said on his podcast that the NWO doesn't hold a candle to this.
No, it doesn't. No.
And a lot of people would look at that and be like, oh, no, the NWO changed wrestling. The NWO, it's different.
Yeah.
Because the NWO was about violence, about takeover, about that kind of thing. This is about manipulation.
Yeah.
This is about one man getting literally booed out of the building.
for years.
And literally, The Rock couldn't save it. And nobody gave this guy a chance.
No.
But daggum credit to Vince McMahon for finding a way.
Yep.
The pandemic hit at a perfect time for Roman Reigns.
It did.
Because Vince McMahon put him in a position to try something new, and daggum if it didn't work.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, part of me thinks that maybe Roman even said, like, I can't do the same thing.
Especially with no fans.
With no fans. Like, even if he came back before, like, with fans, I think you could even tell that he was like, I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again because it's not working. It never worked.
Yep.
Roman was the most over in the 2014 Rumble. But that was because Batista. Nobody wanted Batista to win.
Right.
I mean, Roman got one of the biggest pops of the night, and then he got eliminated, and everybody hated it. And then fast forward a year, and he is getting booed out of the building every single night. Like, it's not just like the bizarro, the Philly crowd's doing it, the Chicago crowd's doing it. These little towns that they were traveling to were booing Roman Reigns too. So like it was all over the place. It's hard to deny that this story is probably one of, if not the greatest stories of all time, because a great story elevates everyone involved.
Yep, it does.
Roman went from being the guy that WWE wanted, Roman went from being the WWE's guy to being literally the guy.
Yep.
Like the guy of professional wrestling.
Yep.
The Usos went from being really great wrestlers to like, oh man, they're great storytellers in the ring right now too. Like they got elevated. Solo Sikoa feels like a threat every single time he's in the ring.
And he's going to only get bigger.
Yeah. And then, Sami Zayn, who this time last year was in a feud with Johnny Knoxville.
Way better than it should have been.
Much better than it should have been. Turns into the biggest babyface in the company for a long time. Yep. Even still arguably like him and Cody are neck and neck as biggest babyfaces in the company.
I think you can throw Seth in there too, but yes. I see your point.
Even Seth, I don't think is to that level of
insane.
Of Sammy and Cody.
It's insane.
Which is crazy. And so everybody...
It's insane is what it is.
It is insane. Everybody is being involved. And the thing that is crazy is we don't know who's still manipulating who.
Right.
Like Paul Heyman is still potentially the guy that is manipulating all of this.
We're almost 3 years into the storyline, like you said, and we still really don't know
anything.
Yeah, we do not see an end to it.
No.
Because there's so many ways that you could go with this. Because if you look at what's going on TV right now, Jey Uso has reunited, but could it be that Jey Uso has come back in to tear it down from within because he can?
Right.
Because he's actually part of the family.
Yep.
Do the Usos split up? Is Solo Sikoa somehow going to split from the group and come after Roman Reigns? Is Paul Heyman behind the whole thing? Does Roman somehow turn babyface? Or does Jey Uso get in there so that he can face Roman Reigns instead of his brother?
Right.
Do he and his brother turn and we finally get the wrap up of Jey and Roman, which started this whole thing? We could run this thing for a whole other year.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this whole thing. And I'm telling you, ma'am, I know that a lot of people do not like to give credit here, and I'm not going to give all the credit to Vince McMahon, but daggum, he started this thing.
He did.
It was taken to another level with Sami Zayn and with Triple H and all that. I get that. But Vince ran this thing from August of 2020 until July of 2022.
Yeah.
And it didn't lose steam. It didn't lose interest. Everybody was in it.
Yeah.
The whole time.
I think we were starting to lose interest after the Finn Balor stuff and after the Seth stuff at the Rumble last year.
Right.
And Brock. Like I think the weakest part of the story, the whole story, is the Rumble last year to Mania last year.
Yes. For sure.
Rumble last year to
SummerSlam. See, because
Cena was great. Cena was good. The Finn stuff happened at Extreme Rules in 2021.
After Cena, before Rollins.
Right. So we could say from October 2021 to
WrestleMania
is probably the weakest part of the story.
But then it picked back up, man.
But then it picks up.
Because, like, I remember us being at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And the people just going nuts for Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
I remember us being at SummerSlam this year and the place going wild for Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
So, like, you could make the argument that it felt that way when you're watching it from a TV perspective.
Right.
But, dude, they hit Madison Square Garden during that time. They hit all these places, and it was insane.
I think the thing is, like, the story itself picked up, and we started to realize that this story is fantastic when Sammy got involved.
Oh yeah, we took a whole nother chapter, a whole nother act.
The first 2 years of this was building Roman.
Yep.
Like, was building Roman to what we have now, which is finally what Vince McMahon wanted.
Which you can make the argument that that's where Vince had the letdown, because the first 2 years of this story was about building Roman and just clobbering people.
Yeah.
Now it feels like the direction of the story has changed.
Yeah.
Is where we're elevating other people other than Roman. Yes, it was great because the Usos had the tag belts. And, it was, Roman overcoming all the odds. And his stuff with John Cena was fantastic.
Yeah.
And his stuff with Rollins could have been really good, but, seemingly was a filler spot.
Yeah.
But now it's about bringing other guys up. Solo comes in. Sammy comes in.
Yep. Even Drew in defeat at Clash of the Castle.
Absolutely.
Like, got pushed a little.
Logan Paul.
Yeah.
Like crown jewel.
Like, there are a lot of guys, Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber. You could talk about even going back to, like, Matt Riddle.
Yes,
on
Matt
SmackDown.
Riddle.
Like, that was another one that got elevated. I think what's really interesting, I think you hit the nail on the head, is the first 2 years were building Roman up. When Triple H got in charge, the entire story changed from the most dominant champion to the man that is about to lose everything at the snap of a finger.
Sure.
And I think it made Roman desperate in a good way. Like, it made Roman desperate. It made Roman menacing, because a man that has everything is dangerous because he doesn't want to lose it.
Yep.
And so that, like, added even more into it of, like, what he did to Sammy at the Elimination Chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly what he does to Cody at WrestleMania, because that finish is still, it's 50-50 for me right now.
I'm not ready to call that one at all.
But I think this whole story, even when the story doesn't end with Roman losing the titles.
No, absolutely it doesn't.
The story ends with him and Jay. I don't see the Bloodline story ending any other way. You can throw The Rock in there all you want. The Bloodline story would only be damaged by The Rock than helped by The Rock at this point, I think.
No.
I think it adds to it. I think it does. What I'm saying is this story does not need The Rock. The Bloodline does not need The Rock match.
I think it just adds to it, though, because if you're talking about the Bloodline and the greatest family in wrestling, the only time we've seen the family is in the pandemic era when Alpha and Saga came out.
Yeah.
So I do think it's not required. You do not have to go down the path of The Rock. But I do think it adds another layer to... See, this is why I wanted Rock and Roman at this Mania before he loses the title.
Yeah.
Because it truly solidifies him as one of the greatest champions of all time.
Yeah.
And the leader of of one of the greatest families of all time.
Yeah.
I think that's why you needed it, but I can see it working out where you don't use it.
But I also can see it as being the redemption of Roman. Like, Roman loses those titles, Roman loses his bloodline, and The Rock comes back, and Roman goes after, like, the guy that is known as the guy of the Samoan family, of the bloodline. Even though he was the head of the table, they have to have that confrontation at some point.
Yeah.
But I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be a part of this Bloodline story.
Sure.
Like, I feel like that could be Roman being built back. However, I think when Roman loses those titles, he's going to be off TV for a long time.
I think he needs to be.
And when he comes back, it's going to be hard not to come back as a babyface.
Oh, he's come back as babyface. For sure, because I think you could tell the story of, and we'll wrap up with this, I think you could tell the story of Roman loses titles.
Yeah.
He's off TV. Jimmy and Jay come out. This is our bloodline. Roman was weak. Roman couldn't get the job done, blah, 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 blah. And they start dominating. Maybe they don't win the world title or anything,
Right.
but they dominate for a couple of months. And then Roman shows back up and just takes it to the Usos. He's a babyface. By that time, maybe you get a heel champion and then Roman... whatever.
I think it's going to be hard for Jay not to come out as a babyface of this story.
I agree with that too. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with it.
Yeah.
Depending on how he does. If Roman is off TV, if he's not off TV, Jay's the babyface for sure.
Yeah.
But if Roman's off TV, you could give the reins to the Usos.
Yeah. And let Solo be that guy.
And there you go.
Yeah.
You could do that too.
Or let The Rock come in and be the heel and be that guy.
Oh my! Listen to PBWF, ladies and gentlemen, because I had that. It was a great storyline. All right, let's transition to AEW. The next biggest question in wrestling today: why in the world does AEW need another wrestling show? Because all I heard going into AEW in the first year of AEW's inception, WWE's got too much content. They're oversaturating us. How can you sit and watch 10 hours of wrestling a week? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
AEW will now be up to their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th in-ring show of the week once this Saturday at 6:05 things happens.
Right. It's also, but it's only the...
and Ring of Honor. Sorry, and Ring of Honor.
It's only the third televised TV show, though, right? Because the other two are Dark and Elevation.
And Ring of Honor is
all streaming.
Yes. WWE's weren't all televised either.
They were just at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, main event wasn't televised.
It was on at like 3 in the morning, wasn't it? Or Saturday morning, wasn't it? For a while it was.
I might have been, but I thought it was just a network product.
I think they changed it. I think before the network, it was on like
right,
early,
probably.
late, whatever, and then it got switched over. I think
regardless.
Well, one, I think this adds the other intrigue of like AEW needs their own streaming service to put Ring of Honor and all this other stuff on.
I really think that's the only answer here.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're headed.
But, I mean, maybe the network if the network asked them to put on another show, then...
Not to mention...
do it, but...
We have the All Access show.
Right.
That starts the week of WrestleMania. That's not a in-ring show.
Right.
But that is coming on directly after Dynamite on TBS at 10 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
Starting the Wednesday before WrestleMania. So there's another show. I don't know, man.
I don't think they don't need it. I think it's way too much. Especially the time slot that they're in. For what is
Saturday at 6:05 Eastern on TBS, the old WCW time slot, which is another big
which I mean
point of contention for me
right now is fine, but like you move into college football season,
college
basketball season, NBA, you're not going to have a lot of viewership. I don't know. I feel like it's just I feel like it's a network thing. Mm-hmm. But also, too, like, maybe Tony's just going too big for no reason.
Let me ask you, and be honest. I know there are things on Dark and Elevation that you might go out of your way for. If you see it advertised or you read online that, you need to go check this out or, blah, blah, blah. But on a regular basis, do you watch those shows?
No, I don't. I think, honestly... The purpose of Dark and Elevation is to do, like, they're just dark matches before Dynamite.
Right.
And then there's like, let's just air them.
Right.
And if people want to watch them, they watch them.
And I get that you want to get guys work. So I'm not knocking them getting guys work. But man, when you go to these events, I was either telling you, I can't remember if it was you or somebody else that I was talking to about this, but when you go to AEW television, it is not the 2 hours that you see. It is an hour before. Mm-hmm. And at least an hour after.
Yeah.
And so it's like a 5-hour marathon.
The hour before is like 20 matches in an hour because it's like match, boom, we're done. Match, boom, we're done. Match, boom, we're done.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is like, it's fine. Like,
so you're putting, I'm not, be careful, I'll say this. because Grillo has wrestled on these shows. So this is nothing against our friends. That honestly, this is not, a lot of CCW guys have wrestled on these shows. So it's nothing against the talent. So please don't, if you're listening to this, please don't hear me say that. But if you have these matches, you said 20 matches in an hour. That is not an exaggeration, folks.
I think it's not 20, but it's like at least 10.
They don't last more than 5 minutes.
No.
At the most.
No.
So what is the point in putting all these things out there to get guys work, but they're only out there for like 2 or 3 minutes?
Yeah, I think part of it's name exposure, but also part of it is just like, we have a live crowd. Let's just go out and entertain them for an hour before the show.
Yeah.
And let's put it on the network or put it on YouTube, which, is fine, because I'll say this, when we go to a WWE show, we're sitting there for an hour. Like, before the show starts, I'm like, man, I'm bored. Like,
yeah, they don't do kickoff show matches anymore, which is annoying.
And it's like, we're just sitting here. And then, like, they're like, oh, get excited for Raw. And it's like, I've been sitting here for an hour. Like, you could have given us something. Because Mike Rome doesn't talk. Nobody says anything for that first hour.
You hear the most woos that you've ever heard in your life.
Or Adam Cole Bebe's or whatever the case is.
You do.
So I get wanting to have something. And like, if you're going to have something, why not advertise, or why not play it later?
Yep.
It's fine, because again, YouTube was the thing that got AEW basically started in the first place, because that's where the being the elite and everything else took off. So I don't know. I feel like there's a purpose for those, and like the way they've been doing things, I think works fine.
Mm-hmm.
The new show, I have no interest of watching, because that's a lot of wrestling in a week. Mm-hmm. If you watch WWE and AEW,
because look at the schedule.
I don't even watch Rampage half the time.
Right. Look at the schedule. Monday's Raw.
Yep. Tuesday's NXT.
Wednesday is Dynamite.
Thursday's Impact. If you watch it.
Thursday's Impact. Friday is Rampage.
And SmackDown.
Saturday is going to be this.
And pay-per-views. And then Sundays are AEW pay-per-views. And then you throw in, if you're throwing in
main event, which, again, I don't think airs regularly. Mm-mm. Then if you're throwing in New Japan. Yep. And then if you're throwing in Impact pay-per-views, you're throwing in the Ring of Honor stuff whenever that airs.
GCW whenever they...
GCW pay-per-views, which is on Saturdays. All of these other things, like, I'm not saying it's too much wrestling. What I'm saying is like, I don't think, in my opinion, that it helps to continue to give shows.
I agree.
I don't think that helps.
I agree, but also it's one of those of like, now there's literally an option for you to watch wrestling every day if you want. Yep. And you can watch whatever wrestling you want with pretty easy access now.
It's true.
So like, if you're WWE only, hey, you got Raw on Monday, Tuesday you got NXT. You got NXT Level Up, which comes out.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Whenever it comes out, I don't remember when it comes out. You've got SmackDown on Friday. You've got pay-per-view Saturdays. So like, you can watch WWE exclusively, you can watch AEW exclusively, you can watch Impact exclusively if you wanted to, New Japan exclusively if you wanted to. So like, there are options for everybody, which I love that. But when you enjoy it all, it's very difficult.
And when you have a podcast and you try to talk about as much of it as you can,
it's very difficult.
It's exhausting.
It is very difficult.
It's not even difficult. It is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, I literally, at the end of the week, I finished my research for our show right before we hit record.
Yeah.
Like, and I start after we get done. It literally takes me that long to make sure that we're consuming what we need to consume to figure out what we need to talk about.
Plus doing all of our other shows and working jobs and everything else. It's a lot to take in.
Wrestling fans are just exhausted at this point. So,
especially if you're a wrestling fan and a college basketball fan, because you got March Madness going on right now too. And it's just, there's a lot going on.
My brain is like mush.
It is mush.
Anyway, all right, let's move on to the third question that we came up with for the big question. Anyway, so you guys that are watching us at PBW Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, if you've got ideas for these big questions, we may start doing this each week to try to create a bigger discussion, talk about bigger topics. So if you've got ideas of, hey, what big questions in the world of wrestling, what do you want us to talk about? Hit us up at PBW Podcast. Our individual social handles are right down at the bottom as well. Hit us up. All right. What is your assessment, Andy?
Yep.
Of this year's WrestleMania card? I know we just talked about the Bloodline storyline, so sort of take that out of the equation. What's your assessment of this year's WrestleMania card, not under the leadership of Vince McMahon?
I feel like 90% of the matches are not just thrown together.
Okay.
And I think he's even said, like in media stuff or like to dirt sheets or whatever, but quality over quantity.
Yes.
Which I have been preaching for a long time.
Yes.
So
for sure.
I like that. I appreciate because I would rather have 6 matches, 5 matches each night, but they're like the story we're telling is fantastic.
Yep.
We're going into it. They mean something. Like it feels like we are getting that this year.
Yep.
With the exception of 1 or 2. So like I think that's fantastic. I think part of it, I think some of it is like some of these stories we've been telling for a long time, and Mania needs to be the end of some of these.
I agree.
Which I think for Edge and Finn more than likely. Hopefully for Becky and Bayley that's the case too, because I feel like if we keep going with that one, it's gonna go sour pretty quick.
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like the build to this year's card has been different than any before, and I've really enjoyed every step of the way.
Good.
Like I've really, really enjoyed it.
Honestly, man, I don't know that it's much different. And that's not me trying to give Vince credit.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at the landscape of the actual show and of the roster and what we have. And I'm like, not saying that I could have put this card together because I'm not trying to take that kind of credit.
Right.
But I do feel like this is a card that I'm not saying Vince is increative, but Vince could have had a hand in putting together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The only thing I will say is, for example, last year, no Intercontinental Championship match.
Correct.
No United States Championship match.
Correct.
We get both this year, and both are going to be big time matches.
That's a big change. You're right.
The tag title match that we're assuming we're going to get.
Yep.
No offense to Nakamura and Boogs. It feels like an absolutely WrestleMania tag team championship match.
But look what we got in night 2 last year. Again, I'm not trying to take it from Vince here, but
what did we get in night 2 last year? Oh, the Fatal 4-Way for the women's?
The triple threat. We got both of those. The triple threat. You had Orton and Riddle, Street Profits, and Alpha Academy.
Oh, yeah.
Started the night off.
Yeah,
so,
which like Nakamura and Boogs match was good too until Boogs tore his quad and everything else.
Yep.
The match was going really good. Like the matches were fine. I'm just saying the build to these have been better, and it feels like we are taking our time with these instead of just kind of throwing a dart at the board and getting a match.
So the match itself might be the same, but the build and the story is a lot different.
So I'll say this. The match may be the same, but my excitement for these matches are different.
I got you. There you go.
Last year, because we talked about it last year, Roman versus Brock, it was fine. Like I didn't, and the match
Charlotte Ronda.
The match itself was fine.
Right.
Charlotte Ronda, I had no interest in. That match was
fine.
Wolf. Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn is a good example of like we had no excitement for that match. After the match, we both looked at each other and said that was the most fun I've had this weekend so far. So like there are some similarities. I just feel like each match is even when Dom and Ray gets announced.
Yep.
There's a story behind it.
Sure.
The only one that I feel like there's no story behind is Brock and Omos.
Because there's not.
And that's the match that I'm like, okay, I have literally no excitement for this. But I understand why they're putting it on.
If they break the ring at WrestleMania.
I don't even think they're doing that.
You don't think they'll break the ring?
Man, he couldn't even clothesline Brock out of the ring this week.
I know, that's true. Good point. Lord help us all.
Here's the thing. I understand why they do it. Because, like, they were just in the ring together and the crowd was going crazy.
It was insane.
Like, I get that. I understand.
Omos's hand is more than twice the size of Brock's.
It is.
It's insane.
And, like, I get it because the casual fan sees these two big boys and, like,
sure.
oh, let's watch this. Here's my problem, though. This is why WWE struggled, and we'll see if they struggle, to keep the casual fan and turn it into a viewing fan.
Yep. Is
because, yes, the spectacle looks great.
Yep.
The bell rings, and it's horrible.
Sure. There you go. Good point.
And then they're like, oh, well, why did if this is this, I don't want to watch the rest of it.
Yeah, you as much as you want to pull in the casual fan to see these two behemoths go at it, you don't want the casual fan to see how bad it is and be like, well, I'm glad I don't watch that on a regular basis.
It's copy and paste of Bobby and Omos last year.
Sure it is.
Which, like, the place went nuts when Omos got suplexed for the first time.
Yes, he did.
But even then, it was like, okay, that was great. The match was horrible.
It was.
So, like,
It was awful.
I don't know. I feel like I understand why they're doing it, but, man, there's so many better options.
I'll tell you what, I know that you and I both left WrestleMania last year. We were in attendance, so we're biased, but we both left WrestleMania last year incredibly excited for what we got. It was, in my opinion, one of the top WrestleManias of all time, just because of the way that it was structured and just how good it was. And again, we were biased, but we'll see what happens after this year.
I would put night one
up against almost,
other than maybe like 17 and 31. Because 31, I think, is the one. I think 31 might be the most underrated WrestleMania of all time.
It definitely is the most underrated. Agreed.
But like WrestleMania 38 night one was really good.
As good as almost anything they've ever done, for sure. All right, let's hit one more big question, and then we'll take some viewer questions and get ready to get out of here. Beyond FTR, where does the AEW tag team division go from here? Because we speculated.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of speculation about will they, won't they with FTR. Where are they going to go? Well, they showed back up at Revolution.
Yeah.
But it's still not confirmed whether they've signed an extension or not.
Right.
You know, it seemingly is saying that all they did with the talks and all that was just storyline. But then Dax goes on his podcast and says, yeah, we only have a month or so left on our contract or whatever.
Right.
So these guys are old school. They're going to work you till they can't work you anymore. They're not going to tell you anything.
Right.
That's just the way they are. That being said, let's say that they just have come back to put the guns over.
Yep.
And then they're gone.
Yep.
Where do they go from here?
I think the best...
Not FTR.
Right.
Where does AEW go
I think
from
the
here?
best thing for AEW is to go back to their roots.
Yep.
Like, push the Young Bucks.
Yep.
Push the Lucha Brothers.
Yep. That's what I wrote in my notes right here. The division has to center around the Bucks and the Luchas.
Put Lucha Express or Jurassic Express back together and let those two guys go back at it because they're really good. And I'm not saying don't build up young guys because, listen, the Acclaimed you could put in there with the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers right now, and I feel like they would be fine. Yep. They would fit. I look at somebody like the Dark Order. I think you could build up Dark Order pretty easily.
Yep.
You've got Blackpool Combat Club that you could put Yuta and Claudio in the tag division.
Yep.
And that would work out really well. So like I feel like they need to go back to their roots. Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers need to be the center focus. Because here's the thing. House of Black can be the center focus of the trios titles.
Sure.
And
you could throw, we saw at the end of the night on Dynamite, you saw the Dark Order, and you saw Hangman, and you saw the Elite and all that kind of stuff. You can put the Dark Order against the House of Black.
You could. Absolutely. You could also go back to your roots at some point and do Kenny and Page again.
Sure you can.
Because who's not going to love Kenny and Page? Which I love the fact, because I know Dynamite ran long, so they didn't get to show everything that they wanted to show.
Right.
But when they released footage of it.
By the way, they started the last match and had 30 minutes of TV time left, and they still ran out of time.
Because it was 3 tag teams, 3 6-man tags that are ridiculous.
I know, but good grief. Anyway, go ahead.
But even after they went off the air, Kenny bailed from the ring.
Yep.
Like Kenny wanted nothing to do with Page. Mm-hmm. So like I love that they're telling that story. You can center that story. But the Bucks need to be at the center of that tag division.
Agreed. They brought them to the dance.
Yeah.
Even if the Bucks are there to put somebody over and to make them look good, like, do I think they need to win the titles again? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
But do they need to put somebody over in the process? Could you imagine Bucks versus the Acclaimed for the belts?
Yeah.
God.
Like the Bucks I'll say this: the Bucks need to win the titles and hold them for at least a year.
I agree with that.
At least a year.
Because you got to build somebody up.
You got to build. You can build the Acclaimed back up.
Yep.
You could build. I don't know if you could build the guns up, but you could build somebody up to then take those titles off the Bucks. But the Bucks need to be at the center for the year.
I mean, you think of guys like Top Flight.
Yeah, Top Flight would be great.
Think of guys like that. I mean, you can easily Private Party of Great Workers. You can easily throw them in there.
Yeah.
get them some work.
This is what you kind of miss Santana and Ortiz.
Oh, you miss them so much, man. Man, you really do.
Because they could be the center of this tag team too.
They definitely could.
But
yep. All right, let's answer some viewer questions. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Make sure you follow us at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because that is the way, that you submit your viewer questions. We put out the tweet earlier this week. We're going to do it again this coming week. Make sure you submit your viewer questions. We're going to try to take a couple of these every show. We've got 4 of them for this show. We're going to answer. My dad hit us up with our first question. Glad he was the first one. But Dad wants to know, what WWE superstar only has one title reign? So I'm going to put some caveats on this, and I'm going to kind of twist the question a little bit. So we're going to include all iterations of the world title. So Universal, World Heavyweight, all that kind of stuff. I'm actually going to turn this into the greatest superstar to only have one title reign. Oh, gosh. So I'm going to list a couple of the big ones, okay? And these are there are more.
Right.
But here are the big ones that have only had one WWE title reign. Okay. Dean Ambrose, Kevin Owens, Eddie Guerrero. Yes, I know.
Wow.
Kofi Kingston, The Ultimate Warrior, Sergeant Slaughter, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, Rob Van Dam. Those are the big names that I looked up that have only had one world title reign.
So, obviously, the name that popped off the most was
Eddie Guerrero.
Yep. I don't know how Eddie only has one.
Yep.
Ultimate Warrior is a shock, too, that he's only had one. But you listen to the backstage conversation, it's pretty easy to know why he only had one. Kevin Owens, man.
He's not done, though.
He's not. But I feel like we're running out of opportunities.
We are. You're right. We are.
So, like, I feel like that. And here's the thing. Like, Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, whatever, I feel like his one might be his only one.
Oh, for sure. He ain't going back.
Unless somehow he ends up back in WWE. But I think the one that sticks off the most is Eddie.
I'm going to agree with you. But just because I know it's my dad asking this question and he's listening to this, I'm going to say the Ultimate Warrior is the greatest to only have one title reign. Just because you know his feelings about the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
Love you, Dad. No, but for as big and as popular, as huge as the Ultimate Warrior was, one title reign. That one title reign lasted from WrestleMania 6 to the following Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
So he held it for like 9 months.
Right.
But he only had one.
It's crazy. See, because like my mind when I first saw this question, I was like, "Oh, Drew," but I was like, technically, Drew's held it twice because they had that Randy stupid thing in the middle of it.
Right.
So I think and
now there's probably guys that we miss. So if you're listening, shout us out.
Diesel's another one that's kind of a surprise that he's only won it once.
Yeah, he won it in November of '94. He lost it in November of '95 and left in February or in April of '96.
But the thing about Diesel is when I think of Diesel, I don't think of him as a world champion.
Right. He's an attraction.
Right. So,
all right, next question from my buddy Aaron Grisham, who I work with. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you, man. If you had to watch one specific pay-per-view for the rest of your life, which one would it be? And I'm going to say you can't just say blanket, I'd watch SummerSlam for it. No.
It has to be a specific date, specific year.
Date, year, all the things. If you had to only pick one pay-per-view, what would it be? I'll give you my answer. I'll let you think about yours.
Go ahead.
WrestleMania 34. No questions asked. Because I was there.
Yeah.
And it was my first WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I think, for the most part, that show doesn't have any holes in it. For the most part.
Yeah.
The whole Braun Strowman thing sucked.
Yeah. Charlotte shouldn't have beat Asuka.
No, she should have.
No, she shouldn't have beat. To this day, I still say Charlotte should not have beat Asuka.
I think it went the way that it needed to go.
No.
In my opinion, for the most part,
good.
That show has one, maybe two holes in it. Everybody's gonna make the argument about Styles and Shinsuke.
Yeah.
But we've talked that till it's blue in the face. They couldn't live up to the hype. There's no way.
Yeah.
So
and it has possibly one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time.
It does.
with Brock and Roman.
Yes, that was it was an awful main event, but for the most part,
Yeah.
I'm going to take that one.
So I'm between two. I'm actually between three.
Okay,
So WrestleMania, I'll say WrestleMania 38 night one
that's the other one on my list.
because bias. I was there. Literally my first exposure to WrestleMania in person was that.
That's why I picked 34, ladies and gentlemen.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Money in the Bank 2011
Okay.
is a really good one because I know everybody talks about Cena and Punk, which is really good. But you also had Randy Orton and Christian in that no holds barred match.
Sure.
Both Money in the Bank ladder matches were really, really good.
Yep.
So like that was the one. The one I could probably watch over and over and over again though is NXT TakeOver War Games 2019.
Oh yeah.
Because I was in the building for that one. And the men's War Games match was ridiculous. That's what Kevin Owens made his return.
Mm-hmm.
Ciampa does the air raid crash from the top of the cage through tables. The women's one was really good because that's where they solidified Rhea Ripley as like a beast.
Yep.
But then you also had a triple threat between Pete Dunne, Killian Dane, and Damian Priest.
Yeah, the winner
for the
was
North America. No, the winner got to face Adam Cole the next night, which Pete Dunne and Adam Cole, that match in person was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had Matt Riddle versus, was that Riddle and Balor?
Yeah,
that was Riddle and
Balor.
Balor, which was really good. And then you had Swerve versus
Johnny.
No, because Johnny was hurt.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right.
Who did Swerve face? Swerve faced somebody. I don't remember who Swerve faced. Anyways, that pay-per-view, I could go back and watch that over and over and over again because I absolutely love it.
I'll put NXT TakeOver New Orleans in
Yeah.
that category since I was there as well.
Yeah.
I think that one is a perfect
Is
takeover.
that where Adam Cole pulled double duty?
Yes.
And
Adam
Roddy
Cole
turned?
Yeah, Adam Cole pulled double duty. Roddy turned. Aleister Black won the championship. Shayna Baszler started her run, and it was the first of the Gargano Ciampa trilogy.
Yeah.
So
that was a good one.
Incredible heat. Ciampa came out with no music, and it was just incredible. But I'll tell you what, a follow up to that question will be. We're not going to get to it this week, but if somebody wants to submit it on social media, that'd be great. If you had to pick one pay per view to watch for the rest of your life that you were not in attendance for, what would it be? So, yes,
I think I gave my answer to that one already, too.
A little biased, but yes, I'd have to think about that one. Coming up next, our buddy Trent Osborne, bodyslam.net contributor. Thank you so much for your question. You stole our big question this week.
Yeah.
But his question wasn't what's wrong with Bray, what's going on with Bray, wishy-washy Bray.
Yeah.
What's his contractual status? No. Trent's question was, how would you fix the Bray Wyatt character? Now, recently on the show, I said Uncle Howdy should not get physical.
Right.
Because I thought Uncle Howdy needed to be mystical and needed to be, this, we don't know about him.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with Bray's character. That's one thing that I would fix.
Yeah, I think Uncle Howdy didn't need to make a physical appearance until the road to WrestleMania.
Yep.
Like I don't, even the night after WrestleMania, I think you could wait.
Sure.
He's this mystical figure behind the scenes, building to that. I think that should have been what it was. Honestly, I feel like this whole Bray Wyatt story they have an end goal in mind, but the direction to get there has been all over the place.
Woo!
Has been all over the place. The start to the LA Knight feud was fantastic.
Sure.
I mean, LA Knight slapping him in the face,
Mm-hmm.
and then Bray literally burying him backstage. You had the mask showing up everywhere. LA Knight got kidnapped and was on TikTok. Like they were doing fantastic things. And then it felt like Vince started booking things again for a while. I don't know. I feel like the direction they need to pick a direction they were going in and stay on that direction. And I think part of it, because Bray Wyatt has said this in an interview with I believe it was Ryan Satin, that he will try anything.
Sure.
And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, doesn't work. Which I like. That's how you get the Firefly Funhouse, is because, hey, let's try this, and if it works, great. And then it's literally one of my favorite things, even though I believe it was, what's the idiot's name? Russo said it's one of the dumbest things he's ever seen in wrestling or whatever.
Russo's
done a lot of
dumbest.
I think Cornette said it too, actually, and Cornette's an idiot.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, but like Firefly Funhouse was literally one of the best things during the pandemic era as well.
For sure.
Was the Firefly Funhouse. One of my favorite WrestleMania matches is the Firefly Funhouse match between Bray Wyatt and John Cena, just because of how crazy it was.
Yeah,
So
it was insane.
I feel like they need to pick a direction and go in it. And if Bray wants to do creative things, go for it. But we gotta stay on this one direction.
Yeah, my thing was like I feel like we're having to guess too much. Like,
which isn't necessarily always a bad thing,
right?
But you got to start giving us some answers at some point.
That's what I was going to say. Like, we need something.
Yeah.
Because right now, honestly, like Bray said, they have an end goal in mind or whatever. I don't even know, like, what direction. Like, I don't even know where to look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I need something. You don't have to give it all to me. But we don't even know what the point of the story is right now.
Yeah.
We need something.
And I think part of this hurts because of how good the Bloodline story is.
Yes.
This affects every other story because nothing is going to lead up. Nothing is going to be on the level. Even Cody and Roman by themselves is not as big as the Bloodline storyline.
You know, when you take a long road trip, for example, let's take our road trip to Dallas last year. I made several pit stops along the way, right? We need a pit stop on this Bray story.
Yeah.
First pit stop was LA Knight.
Yep.
We need another one now.
Yeah.
We need something that we can sink our teeth into that is not only going to get us excited for the right now,
right,
but for what's next for Bray.
Which I feel like could potentially have if the WrestleMania match happens, which it's up in the air that it might not.
Right.
Because of whatever is going on with Bray. I feel like whatever was going to happen at WrestleMania was going to be that. I think the next big development was going to happen at WrestleMania. And then the night after or the SmackDown after, we're off and running again.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that we've talked about since he came back at Extreme Rules was Bray's first Mania match back is going to be under Triple H. What's going to happen? You know, is it going to be Bray versus Uncle Howdy? Is it Bray versus himself? What is it?
Right.
Well, now we're like, is Bray even going to be on the card?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So
it's just, I don't know, man.
Which, this whole Bray thing is adding a lot more fuel to the fire of Vince being back in creative. Especially after him being in Gorilla for the entire episode of Raw a couple weeks ago.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, I feel like we're heading in a direction, and this all could be a work. Like Bray's been known to work people a lot too.
Sure.
So I don't really know what to expect at WrestleMania with him.
I don't either. All right, let's get to one more viewer question before we wrap things up here. This one comes from our buddy Jason Makowitz, and he wants to know, what is the greatest Shawn Michaels feud that never happened? So, to put this into context, we cannot say Shawn and Johnny Gargano, or we can't say Shawn and AJ, because those physically could not have happened. The parameters for this question are 1988 to 2010. That's it.
So people in the business that he didn't get to work with
from
during
1988 to 2010.
So I'm going to steal probably yours or one of yours, because I feel like the big one would be Sting. I think Shawn and Sting would be very interesting.
Shawn and Sting would have been great. If Sting would have been able to make it over to the company instead of going with TNA, that's the only way that one could have happened.
Yep.
Yep. I got an obvious one.
Yeah, the one that pops out to me, obviously, we got it, but we didn't get it after what happened, which is Shawn and Brett.
Yeah.
Like after the screw job, Shawn and Brett, the feud would
another
be
one.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, because they ran with that story. I mean, that story really started in I guess it started in 96.
Right. But like the post screw job feud.
I'm going to give you the obvious one, The Rock.
I can't believe that never happened. That's
They don't like each other.
Really?
There's personal heat, yeah. At least there was before Shawn came back in his second run.
Yeah.
There was big time personal heat between them during the Attitude Era.
What?
Shawn being Shawn. chalk it up to that. Sean being Sean.
Yeah.
And then when he came back, Rock was on his way out.
Yeah.
So it was never a thing. So that's the big one.
Wow.
I'll tell you one that didn't happen, and it's unfortunate, is Eddie Guerrero.
That's another one I was going to say was Eddie.
Because that was supposed to be the Mania 23 match. And Eddie passed away.
That would have been...
Sorry, not 23, 22.
Yeah, because Eddie won
22.
the title 21.
Yeah, and Eddie passed away in 05.
Yeah.
And Mania 22 was in 06. Yep.
Is that Cena, Sean?
No, that was 23. 22 was Sean and Vince.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that train wreck of a match.
So that was supposed to be Sean and Eddie. So
Jeez, that would have been
one.
fantastic. Sean and Eddie would have been amazing.
There's not many guys that Sean didn't touch. There's not many.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, during that, from his return to his retirement match, of people he didn't get in the ring with. Because he retired in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, like, Punk,
You could have gone Punk. I mean, he tagged with Punk.
but they never had, like,
They never had a feud. His Punk was still sort of on the rise there. He had a small run with RVD, but nothing like major. An off the wall one could have been Sean and Booker.
Did Sean and Foley do anything?
Not in his second run, because Foley retired in 01.
Right.
So yes, they had one match in your house, 1996, when Sean was champion.
Yeah.
It was a very good match, but that was the only thing that they had.
Yeah.
So it was a short little run. There's not many guys,
There's
man.
not. Because, like, Sean and Edge,
They had a run.
they had a run.
They had a little run.
Obviously, Sean and Cena had a run.
Sean and
Batista, did they?
they had a run. Yep, they had a small run.
Yeah.
Sean and Austin, if Sean would have been in the right mind,
Yeah.
would have been fantastic. Obviously,
I'll give you one. Sean and Brock.
could have happened. Very much could have happened.
Sean and Brock. That would have been.
It'd have been fun.
That would have been like that era's version of Brock and AJ. I think.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Or Sean and Goldberg.
They had a match.
Did they?
Yep, and they were in a chamber match against each other, and they tagged.
Well, I'm talking like a singles feud. Like
They had a match. It was like a Raw match or something.
wow.
Yep, they had one match. Fairly certain.
I still think the best answer is
Here's
Sean and
here's
Edge.
another one that I don't think got enough mileage. And Jason, maybe this is one you're looking for. Sean and Christian.
Yeah, that was one that popped in my head too with Sean and Christian.
We didn't get that one. We got Sean and Edge.
Yeah.
We didn't get Sean and Christian. It could have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. We also got
Christian was back and forth in TNA at that time, I think.
right. Yeah. We got Sean and Jeff Hardy.
Very
It was like 2008.
very just brief.
Yeah.
That would have been good. But those are two ultimate baby faces. You can't really.
Sean could go heel. Well, not in the second round. He couldn't have.
He tried against Hogan, and people just loved him even more.
That's because it was Hogan and what happened.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think the best one is probably Sean Eddie
Or Sean Rock.
or Sean Rock.
Yep.
But I think match wise, like quality match wise, Sean Eddie would be hard to beat.
You'd be talking one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. No doubt. Hands down. All right. That is going to do it for all of our questions. Appreciate y'all sending those in. Again, at PBW Podcast, we're going to put up a tweet again this week. Send those questions into us. We'd appreciate it. Some quick hitters on the way out. Andy, just some quick thoughts.
Yep.
We mentioned Rey Mysterio being in the Hall of Fame. Great Muta is announced for the Hall of Fame, which we kind of assumed was going to happen.
Yep.
Good stuff. I assume Flair is going to induct him since he announced it.
Probably.
I don't know who else is going to do it.
Yeah. I think they also said Conan's going to
Induct
Ray, which makes sense.
Which is very cool. The Bellas are gone from the WWE, changing their name to the Garcias. It's the end of an era, man.
It is, but I got to also tell you the Blood and Guts match, the Outsiders need 2 more people.
It's not going to happen.
I don't think it is either, but
They've already said it's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, of course they're going to say it's not going to happen, and then they'll show up and they'll get the big pop.
They're not getting. I don't think they're physically able to do the Blood and Guts match.
No, I don't think they
especially
want to.
with Nikki.
I don't think they want to wrestle anymore.
I don't think they do either.
But they had a lot of problems with WWE.
It'll be interesting. Of course, the comments they made said they didn't, but whatever. It's interesting. They need 2 more people in that match. We didn't talk about that.
Yep.
It's coming. We assume it's going to be a Dynamite.
Yeah. I think the one that everybody's going to be talking about is Mercedes.
Sure.
I don't think she's in it.
Well, that's a way to build a Forbidden Door.
Oh, yeah, because Forbidden Door 2 got announced in Toronto, which, interesting in Toronto.
Yes.
Because Edge is making the jump.
Edge is not making a daggum jump.
Could you imagine if they worked out a deal?
I know.
If they worked out a deal
where Edge could go have that
Jeff Hardy's back. We do Hardy's versus Edge and Christian at Forbidden Door.
Oh, my Lord.
Forget that. Give me United Empire versus Edge and Christian and Jericho or somebody. That would be fun.
Just Edge and Christian and FTR.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about
Could
that
do
one too. That would be if FTR still there.
I mean, FTR could be in New Japan and they could still be there.
Sure, that's very true. That's a good point.
Speaking of AEW, Taya Valkyrie,
That's a good
whatever
spot
her
for
name
her.
is,
Yeah, I think AEW is a good spot for her.
showing up, going to put Jade Cargill over, I assume.
Yeah.
But she is there now. Drew and Sheamus, controversial finish to the Fatal 5-Way. We're going to see that match
It's a triple
coming
threat.
on SmackDown. It's got to be. But that was interesting the way they did that,